Thanks again for joining us on another Digital Marketing Answered video. Today I'm very happy to be joined by Simon Bird, and we're going to be talking about ideas and developing ideas and validating ideas in business. So thank you very much for coming, Simon.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I think first of all, Simon, can you give us an introduction as to who you are and the consultancy that you run?
Yeah, sure. I run the Innovation and Creativity Lab, and it's a business I founded to help people use their thinking and their ideas to develop faster paths to growth. That's simply what I do, and I encourage them to look at new ways of thinking and their markets in different ways. My background's and how I've sort of built up the business is from my time in sales and marketing over the last 30 odd years in FMCG corporates, but also in international markets over the years. And from that background, I've come up with the programs that I run.
Yeah, and I've seen your profile. It's quite a diverse and heavyweight background. So yeah, you bring a lot of experience to this.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess so. I've started in the paper industry a long time ago, in developing markets in Middle East and Southeast Asia. That was really the start of my career when I was first graduate. But then I moved quickly into British American Tobacco, running some of their global brands, but also their end market operations around the world. And then Diageo, and then banking, and most recently Tempur Sealy, where I was global marketing director for them and their business around the world.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so you talk about how you help people develop their creative thinking.
Yeah.
What does that look like? So you know, how does this sort of manifest itself?
I've developed a program that I think we'll get to talk about a little bit more later on. I call it the Catalyst program. But basically the premise that I have is that businesses use a lot of process and data and forecasting to develop their plans, but they tend to ignore the real asset that they've got, which is all of the intelligence and the intellect and the creative capability of their teams and themselves to look at that information and their markets and their products and what they're doing in fresh ways. Because it's very easy to get locked into a particular way of doing business. And that is almost the process of business, isn't it? You become successful at something and you try and refine it to become more successful. Okay. But at some point, that model, the advantages of that model will deteriorate or flatten out. So it's really about challenging the thinking and the way people approach their business development that I bring to them and help them with. Okay,
so what you're doing is you're helping businesses maybe take a leap. So you know, they say that they'd have never invented the motor car if they hadn't looked at that. They'd have just got faster and faster horses or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying the routine of business tends to be the development of better, more refined, doing this in a more efficient way. And what you're saying is sometimes organizations need to step back and go, well, what really is happening?
Yeah, and I think at some point, most organizations hit a point where the growth rate plateaus. They get to, they've been used to maybe double-digit growth in the early phases, and then they get to a point where they're competing against some strong competition. They've got all their markets covered. They're doing things very efficiently, but they get to a point where growth is in the 0.5% year on year or something like that.
Yeah.
That might not suit the ambition of the business.
Yeah.
So what they typically do is they try and push harder at what they're doing already.
Right.
But I think if you need to go for growth that's stronger, if you need to go for a double digit again, or if you need to look at new markets, you're going to have to start thinking in different ways. You can't rely on what you've done to that point to get you to the next level of growth. So that's what I help them think through.
So make sure they don't do that, the insanity thing is doing the same thing and expecting to get
the same results. And you can see it, can't you, in a lot of products and things where people, I think razors are the good one that always come to mind. People make razors. So what's the new thing that's going to get them the growth next year? It's going to be the razor with the 6th blade on it. Because last year we did the one with 5 blades, right? Yeah. So it's that kind of thinking. And you can bet when you're at that point, your competitors are thinking the same way as well. So although you might think it's brilliant, and you might have a bit of kit that you've invested in, or some kind of technology that supports you, or some kind of IP, that will erode very quickly at this point. So I think it's good to sort of take a step back and think through what you're doing again. And sometimes that is really hard for businesses to do, because they're locked into their category, they're locked into their ways of working. The power hierarchies, all of those things come and influence what people will bring to the table. And I think what I'm able to bring with the process of creative thinking is really shaking that up a bit and getting new stuff onto the table quickly.
Disrupting what they're doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm hesitant to use a disruptive word because it's quite loaded.
It's a bit
you know what I mean?
Used, isn't it? Disruptors and things like that.
But it is. And one of the things I encourage people to do, actually, one of the exercises is to disrupt their own thinking. You know, if you were going to come in and try and ruin your business tomorrow, what would you do? Right. So that's the kind of thing. Where are the weak points? So that's one of the exercises I get people to do.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about the people then, because I think a lot of the people hopefully watching this kind of senior management level, CMOs, CROs, marketing directors, maybe sales directors, as well as some CEOs and managing directors. Senior people their focus is driving that growth.
Yeah.
Are these the people that you engage with, and how do you engage within an organization? Is it with one or two individuals, or is it with a group? How do you go about it?
So typically I would be talking to a CEO or a CMO, or the person or the team who are responsible for delivering growth. They are usually what I call the sponsors of the project, the people who have the vested interest to seeing the results and who I'm accountable to deliver it to with their help. I think the problem when you talk about strategy and growth, people instantly go, oh, well, we'll have the top team out for a day. We'll get those very people around a table in a smart hotel, and we'll start talking about the future, right? Yeah. Which is great, but actually it's limiting, because you're still talking about the same thing in the same way with the same people. Okay. You're ignoring the fact that there's all of these other capable thinkers who have different experiences and different knowledge and different touch points along your customer's purchase journey and where they sit that you've got to bring in. So what I do is I typically ask people to bring in a more diverse team. Right. Okay. So, and when I mean diverse, I'm talking about experiences. I'm not getting into the HR world of, do we have enough gender imbalance and all those things. Yeah. But this process, I think people need to bring in as many people as they possibly can. So that's right. Okay. That is often frightening, because people go, oh my God, we're going to have to start talking about, the future of the business with, people who want to know that their job's secure. And we're suddenly going to say that, what do we do if we disrupt everything? But actually, I find people are very mature about that. They like to be involved. They like to have their voices heard. Yeah. The trick is to do that in such a way that it feels comfortable, natural, and part of the evolution of the company, right? Rather than a massive shake-up or a silly exercise where you just go away and have fun for a day.
And then nothing happens.
So what I typically suggest people do is set a question that everybody can answer. Okay. And ask for ideas about how that might be answered. Right. So you set a growth question. Yeah. You frame it in such a way that's relevant to that business and where the senior team want to take the business. And then you ask people for their ideas anonymously about how they would do that. And it's done in a structured way. It's not just like a suggestion box in a corner. Yeah. But then you bring those ideas together and you evaluate and sort them, and the senior team can then look at those ideas and they get the breadth and discuss them with the team. Right. So in doing that, you've removed all of the fear that people have about standing up and talking openly. Yeah. So you encourage people who perhaps are a little bit more reticent about giving their ideas in meetings. Yeah. You're giving them an opportunity to bring their ideas forward. Yeah. You can talk about ideas in a more neutral way, so you don't get someone saying this is my idea and it's brilliant. All of that is removed. Right. And you can start to see where ideas cluster as well. So you'll start saying, there's a lot talking about customer experience over here, improving the customer experience. That might be one thing, or it might be, somebody else saying no to grow, we need to enter a different market. Yeah. you'll start to see those patterns and make those connections.
Yeah.
And as you do that, it's not about saying oh no, we can't do this, we can't do that. It's just about looking at the patterns and working on this, and the ideas spark. And the process of doing that is actually quite smooth and quite quick. It sparks a lot of debate and interest and different contributions that get people moving quite quickly.
So, I mean, from a people viewpoint, then you're talking about once you've got your senior level sponsors who want to drive the growth and the change.
Yeah.
You're then taking, as you said, diverse cross section all the way through an organisation, down and across.
Yes.
Bringing them together, giving them a voice where they feel comfortable. They can speak out, and because they're speaking out anonymously, nobody's going to go, "Oh my God, Bob, that's a terrible question." That's ridiculous.
Yeah, your job's on the line here.
Hop it.
Yeah.
So, and then you talk about all these ideas, and then you're filtering them and you're clustering them. Is there a way that you help people come up with those ideas? Is there like because some people seem to be good at ideas, and other people seem to not be so good at ideas, or they don't feel confident about ideas.
Yeah.
How do you sort of propagate the development of those things?
Yeah, it's through the debate, actually. That's where it becomes interesting, because what I find is when you've got these first set of ideas in, we then do other exercises around those.
Right.
Prior to actually revealing what the ideas are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so what I do, so I'll have asked people anonymously and electronically to send their ideas in.
Yeah.
And I know what they are.
Yeah.
But nobody else will, not even the senior team.
Right.
And then I get people in to the process, and we go through using lots of different exercises. So people often say, "Oh, creative thinking, you're going to get the coloured pens out." Well, I do get the coloured pens out at this point. But I get people to use quick-fire drawing and different sort of, I wouldn't call them artistic, but those kind of sort of tactile techniques.
Yeah.
Because those are great levelers too. Right. Nobody's going to be sitting in a business boardroom with or a team suddenly showing that they're a Picasso or a Turner or something like that. We're all going to be using stick men and little crappy houses and drawings of dogs and cars. But by doing that way and expressing yourself through visually, the language gets leveled out. So nobody starts to feel, I'm not very good at ideas, as you just said, or I'm not very good at this. They can say, this is how I see the world. This is my experience of it. And people go, oh yeah, that's all right. But as you start to see how someone else sees the world, and it's not just a spreadsheet of, we make 60% profit, gross profit on this day, and then it dropped, and then this happened, and it was because someone dropped a ball or something like that. There's none of that involved. You actually get to a point where people are engaging in the process as equals. Right. And it's really strange. I can't describe it till you've done it and experienced it. And then people suddenly come out and start asking questions themselves. So it's not me sitting there saying, well, why did you say that? And have you got an idea to solve that? Actually, it just happens. Right. It's almost like a catalyst for natural ways of communicating. Right. And in that process, everybody starts to formulate another set of ideas. So you'll find that people will come to a point where they start getting their ideas going in the room. Yeah. Because that's kind of been prompted in the question part before they got to the meeting. Yeah. And then they're in that process and you capture all those ideas, but then you bring the others out that they've done. And they're already in that creative open mode to have a look at the ideas. That's the key thing. You've got to stay in that open-minded part, right? Yeah. To really understand what people are saying and get under the skin. And from a senior manager's point of view, what it allows you to do is, because you've looked at what people have communicated, right, in this very neutral way, because it doesn't matter if someone's not doing a PowerPoint presentation about where they think the company's going. Yeah. If you've just done it with a piece of paper and someone's drawn the business, say, as a car, why the car isn't working, and they show you the wheels are falling off or the tire pressure's wrong. Yeah. Everybody starts to get, oh, that makes sense to me. And now I know why they're saying we could go faster or grow faster if we had better tires on the car. Yeah. I mean, I'm using an analogy to describe it. But everybody gets context and understanding then. Okay. So you really get this sense that the ideas bubble up. No one person is sort of isolated as the ideas guy. So I think it really helps bring that power of diversity and the power of the team and the way that people think. Just brings it all out. And you've got all of the knowledge and the expertise that those people have in their heads out in the room.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, it sounds like you've spent a lot of time refining actually the way you go about this. And you mentioned it's like a catalyst, and you call the process the catalyst process.
I do. Yeah.
So, can you kind of flesh that out for me? I mean,
sure.
So is it an acronym, or is it just that's?
I'm not clever enough to make it an acronym.
Okay.
And have too many letters for too many things. No, it is exactly as you said. You need some kind of intervention to make a change. So as you said at the start, if you keep plugging away, how are you ever going to get to a new way of behaving or a new opportunity? So you need some kind of intervention to shake things up a little bit. We're back to that disruptive word again. So the program is designed really from my own experience. So I suppose I'm thinking about three things when I say that. First of all, there's a bit of theory and psychology and all the rest of it, and that comes from an MBA I did, where I specialized in creativity, innovation, and change. So there's a bit of that. I won't bore you with that stuff. It comes from my own creative practice, because I am actually an artist and a writer as well. That's part of what I do now. And what I learnt from that, and how creativity works, and how you mustn't kill ideas in the first. Ideas show up as very rough and awful things, right? But you don't kill them off, because actually they could be really, really powerful. You work with them. And the last thing is really from experience. So as I said, I've got 30 odd years of sitting in meeting rooms trying to do this kind of stuff. And when I look back over all of those different experiences, markets or companies I was working in, I was always the guy, a bit like your customers, who was charged with delivering growth. And I always had bosses who said, the 0.5% isn't acceptable. I always worked in companies like that. We want to outperform the competition. We know that the economy is shot to pieces, but we still want to grow by 10% next year. And so that kind of, I wouldn't call it pressure, but that kind of sense of, okay, we've got to do something a bit different here, has meant that over the years, I've always gone back, taken time out and thought about what we're doing and why and how we're going to make it happen. So I've been able to, I suppose, bolt my experience of doing this with teams and delivering it every year for 30 odd years for my various companies, the MBA and how creativity and ideas work, put it all together into this program.
It's interesting. You talk about that, the creativity and the innovation within the space of the organisation. I suppose we kind of maybe do it on a micro scale in terms of we're typically only touching the digital aspects of an organisation's growth plans, but we do try and say, well, why are you doing that? Question these things and say, there are different ways of doing it. We see the people going, well, we've always done, I don't know, paid search, and we've always delivered this, and we need, but now it's not working so much. It's like, well, change the game, move on to something else. You're actually looking at this at a much more high organisational level. So saying things like, well, rather than 6 blades on your razor, why don't you change the buying model of it? Those kind of things. Why don't you include some kind of customer service about it, or whatever?
Is it actually what you're doing is male grooming? If that is, how do you redefine it, right? And I think the point on technology is interesting because it comes up. Whatever we do, technology, digital capability is always an enabler of what you can do differently. In years by, it might have been, oh no, we can buy a bigger fleet of vans and get our product round 20 times faster than the competition if we do it this way. That nowadays, it's all sorts of other capabilities that are out there. It's not about jumping on the bandwagon, it's choosing the right one for you, and which one's going to serve your customer interests the best, and which one can you go fastest down. I'm not a digital specialist by any means. I'm quite neutral on digital and technology. But it would be remiss of me to not to just say, so it's nothing to do with technology. It's not. Technology is a
Yeah.
huge enabler
Yeah.
of change and opportunity because of the way you can reach customers, the information, the data you can generate,
Yeah.
the analytical power that gives you, and how it can underpin your agility. So I'm big into what digital can do for these things. I think it can be a catalyst in itself.
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous when someone says, "Oh, look, we've got a machine, we can plug it in and it will transform our world."
Yeah.
Yes, but I would always say, but do you want to go down that route?
Yeah.
And is that, it might be a good test,
Yeah.
but don't transform your business model just because
Yeah.
you've got a bit of kit that can
Yeah. I mean,
change the world.
I'm with you on that. We see sometimes people being, distracted by the latest shiny thing. Wow, there's this platform. We should be on this platform.
Yeah.
We should. Well, what's the justification? I mean, you've talked about the idea generation, but a lot of what you do is helping people to validate
Correct.
the ideas and moving forward. So
So that's
how does that work?
Yeah, the first part of the program is all of the what I call the inspiration part. So that, if you like, is the real spark of the catalyst. I'm not a chemist either, as you'll tell. So apologies to anybody who's got the sort of scientific degree that thinks the analogy he's using is completely wrong. But it's that first part of the process is what I've explained so far. The next part, when you've got the ideas, is to sort of sit there and explore them.
Right.
And say, okay, so how are we going to move these forward? Because what I think most people do is go, that won't work, we won't do this, and they go back naturally to what's safe.
Okay.
Right? Even marginally safe. So in the process of evaluating the ideas, I come out with 4 different types. We come out with quick wins. Those are the ones that are easy to do, but probably won't give you that much. They might just be incremental gains.
Yeah.
So with those, you get on and do them, right?
Yeah.
They're no-brainers.
Yeah.
You have a bunch that are, at first sight, not going to deliver anything, and they don't make you feel very comfortable, so you drop those.
Okay.
You got a bunch that are, they make you feel very comfortable. You like them, right? Your first reaction is, oh, that's a good idea. That's great. And they're going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you really have to worry about, because those are the ones that are playing to what you already know.
Okay.
Those are the ones that are just going to hold you in the space that you're in already.
Yeah.
And you might bank on them giving you that 10% growth. They're more likely to give you 0.5 or 1.
Right.
Because they're coming from a place that is not moving the needle far enough.
Because you feel comfortable with it.
Yes, it's the comfort.
By definition.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going, oh, that's what we've waited the last 10 years for. That's fantastic. So it's almost counterintuitive. Your enthusiasm for them.
Right.
I think you need to be very careful with them.
Right.
What lots of people do, they go away on an away day. They do this and they come up with a brilliant idea that everybody in the room likes. And then they back that and they roll it out. And then they find 2 years later,
they've only hit the 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
What I'm really interested in, and what I encourage my clients to look at, are the ones that make them, they think could be transformative and have a really good potential, but they feel deeply uncomfortable with.
Right.
The discomfort is, oh, that sounds dangerous, risky, or difficult, or not us, or something about it isn't quite gelling.
Oh, our customers won't like that.
Yeah.
They'll reject that, or
or customers will love it, but how the hell do we make profit doing that? Because we've just bought this factory that doesn't do it, or whatever it is. Our model doesn't work that way. So the interesting thing for me is to then say, okay, so don't junk these. These are too good for you to just leave in the drawer.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to get rid of the ones you like, and you can go away and execute the quick wins.
Right.
But we want you to look at the ones that are also causing you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want you to go out and bet everything on it, right? I want you to go out and explore. So the second part is exploration. So that can involve anything. It can involve, and this is where the sort of process starts to get more bespoke, because depending on what the company, the sector it is, and what they're doing, and where they want to go, and how big they are, I start to work on the program with them and how we'll explore these things. Sometimes it can just be a discussion where you pinpoint, why are you uncomfortable about that? Is it because you think it'll work, but you can't see how you make profit? Right. Well, let's have a session on working out, how could we make profit in delivering that? What needs to change for this to be profitable? Yeah. Sometimes it's customers will hate it. Well, go out and do a bit of research and ask a few customers, right? And that can be remote, it can be independent, it could be, you can construct that any way you like. But you start to get a sense of actually there's growing comfort with this idea.
Yeah.
There's also, to what extent, what you're also testing out is to what extent are those ones we're really comfortable with, are they really going to deliver something good?
Right. Okay.
So you're balancing those two reactions out on
Yeah.
the big ideas side. When you get through that process, we then go into the refine and test and develop.
Yeah.
So you will say, actually, here are the three or the two that we want to prioritize. The next stage of development, we want to drive that harder. We want to prototype. We want to test it out, in real life as a service or a product or with live customer feedback. I don't think it's about betting absolutely everything on day one. I think you've got to tease it out and make sure.
Yeah.
And you've got to look as much, this is the other mistake people do, you've got to look as much at stuff that disproves what you're doing as proves it.
Oh, right. So don't just try and validate your ideas.
Exactly.
Try and try and say, no, this means that it's not.
Yeah, and that's the way a scientist would approach the problem.
Yeah.
Right? A PhD would actually look as well for
Trying to disprove.
Yeah. So I've got a model, I think it's great, but I'm ignoring this huge piece of information over here that tells me it doesn't work in 60% of circumstances, right? It doesn't mean you might not do it, because 40% of circumstances might be enough.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that at least we know what we're getting into. We have a much clearer idea of what we're doing. And then you just say, well, that's the one we're going after. Then it gets back to all the stuff businesses do very well on their own, which is, right, we planned it out, we know what profit we're going to get, we've got a target to meet, we're going to put a team together to deliver it.
Yeah.
The last piece, I
was just going to say, before we move, so in that that validation thing, you're reliant a lot on data at that point. How do you get data to validate ideas? Because we do a lot of things within our MarTech team, helping clients with data and improving the quality of data so they can make decisions. Where's the data for these ideas, though?
A lot of it comes from independent research. So you will specifically look at a way of constructing a piece of research to validate the idea or to disprove it or prove it out to some extent.
Okay.
That can just be, generally it's customer based, because what you're doing is really looking for ideas that are going to impact your customers.
Yeah.
That's what's going to drive growth in the end.
Yeah.
So that would be a first data set. When you get, that's certainly in the explore stage. When you get into the prioritize and discovery and maybe market testing and prototyping, you're going to need all the other data sets. You're going to need how many times people come and visit the web page. How many times do they actually search for this stuff? How many times do they convert? And all of the interactions you would typically get through digital data are going to need to come in. What you need to be sure is you're measuring the things that are relevant to what you're testing. Yeah. Because what I see happens a lot of time, people say, oh yeah, we've got all those measurements in place. Yeah. Right? You go, fine. They do, but they're testing something different. And actually they're missing indicators of the way people are interacting with. So you can't assume the data you've got today and what you measure today is going to be entirely relevant for what you're testing. Right. So sometimes you need to set up different data sets to try and capture that, but it should be light. It's got to be touching on the crucial things you want to measure, rather than let's capture everything, because you'll just end up with data overwhelm, and you'll never. I'm sure you get this in your world too. Yeah. However much you pull in, you will never get to 100% vision of everything that's going on a page, right? You'll get enough to make good decisions, and that's what you've got to aim for.
And what you don't need it. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head by saying it's about using data to get to the bits that you need to know about. Yeah. So some things, it's just noise. It's just noise. Like, oh, look at all these hundreds of stats. Who cares? What are we trying to test here? What are we trying to look at? What are the metrics that will indicate whether that is a yes, no, or a maybe kind of thing?
Exactly. I'm going to reach down for a book now. Yeah. I warned you about this, didn't I?
Yes, you did warn me about.
It's a really good one, and this guy talks about it a lot. So there's the book. It's called Restoring the Soul of Business by Rishad Tabakawala.
We can put that in the notes as well for the episode. So
it's
got that and linked.
It's really interesting. He's the chief strategist and a sort of future planner for Publicis Group, and he's a mathematician. He's got some PhD. Very clever guy. Yeah. But he says maths has to have meaning. And
Okay.
it's basically the premise of this book is that, yes, have your data, get it in as much as you can, but be bold with it, interrogate it and ask difficult questions of it.
Yeah.
And get to understand what it means, not just, oh yeah, we've got lots, here's our data,
Yeah.
right? As you say, here's our data, we measure everything, we feel great.
Yeah.
And we know that 60% of this is people are engaging with our website, we want it at 62% because that'll be good.
Yeah.
You know, just start thinking about
What does it really mean?
what does it really mean?
Yeah.
How are you going to do it? What are the behaviors that are driving that?
Yeah.
How are you going to use that data? Which are the critical ones in your customer's purchase journey that you can do better at?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are really, really interesting. And I think, to your point, when you're looking at the data you need to validate and get comfortable with, let's be honest, the risk you're taking about changing your business or doing something new, you want to make sure you're measuring the right thing.
Yeah, and thinking about the impact. I mean, I always talk about, I think digital marketing and often at interview level when we're interviewing people, I talk about what they think digital marketing is. I talk about it's basically the overlap between understanding data and understanding human behavior, and a good member of the innovation visual team understands data but critically understands human behavior. If they don't have both, they're not going to make a standout digital marketeer, because data on its own is meaningless, but also understanding people without being able to read data doesn't help you get where you need to go.
Absolutely.
You know, you're just drifting around with things. So I'm completely with you and with the author on that. So that's
good.
interesting.
I think you're right. I think people forget, because it gets very siloed, doesn't it? But we use technology and the digital world as a tool, as humans. That's what we do. It's a tool for us to have easier lives, right?
Yeah.
But we're still behaving as humans with it. So all our faults we haven't kept up with the evolution of the technology, really. We haven't changed in the way we think. So I think you're absolutely right. Understanding the behaviors that drive these things is key.
Yeah. No, interesting. So I want to touch on, you were talking about validating the model in a small scale, so things like prototyping, looking at experimentation there. But interestingly, how would you test a business model change? Because that's a pretty big ask.
Yes, that is a big ask. And that, I think, is when you start to have to stage it. You have to go through, the first stage is small scale. Does it really work? So let's say, and by small scale, let's just, for argument's sake, 10 customers, right? Our first benchmark is 10 customers are going to win. We're going to win 10 customers. We're going to keep them for 6 months, and we're going to see that they're 20% more profitable than anything else we've got on our books. That might be, for instance, the benchmark that you set yourself when you go in to validate it. Once you've got to that point, it's like, okay, now, well, while you're doing it, you're planning for the next one. What is it you're going to try and do to scale that up? And that's always extremely hard. That's when you need, remember the senior sponsors around the table, because that's where the brains are. They're the people who know how to do that in their organization the best. And they might say it's all doable, but boy, is that a cultural change too far, and we're going to have to do a program or whatever. That is when I really defer to them and their knowledge of their business and their organization to make that happen. And they're the ones taking the risk, right? So it's only right that they back it and believe in it and feel that they should. But what I like about this process and working with my clients is when they get to these points, because they've started from the early point and they feel it's their ideas, because it's never my ideas. I'm not clever enough to come up with the ideas to solve every business problem on the planet. These guys really believe in what they're doing. And so they get to a point, and this is why I think the process happens faster when you do it this way, is when you get to the point where you're going to have to commit, everybody around the table knows where they've come from, why they're doing it, where the barriers and the problems might exist, but they also know and have confidence in how they'll overcome them. So they're more willing to make that decision. They don't go back to square one and go, but you know what, we're much safer over here doing that.
Doing a faster horse.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you talk about doing it fast, it sounds really involved. I mean, you're not scratching the surface and shuffling the things around. These are really big innovations and ideas that you're asking companies to go ahead with. What's the kind of timeline when you're working with your clients on this?
The first part that I call the inspiration part, which is the sort of the creative ideation part. I think if you spend more than a month doing it, but that's not a month of working on it, that is just from start to finish, you're spending too long. Okay. So I think these processes where you just go round and round and round and round trying to get better and better, it's an intense process where you want stuff to be spat out quickly.
Right. Okay.
So I typically do that. We set the question that I mentioned earlier on. Yeah. We'd have a meeting that'll be 1 week, get the questions out. People will respond within 7 days. Yep. Then you do the meetings. Then we do a wash up. So it's sort of 3 days of working time, if that, and then it's all done in a month. Usually, typically, you get to the point where you go, okay, now we've got the ideas. Yeah. The exploration is more bespoke because it depends which ideas and how many, but that can usually between 3 and 6 months, right? Okay. So that you're out there. I mean, I've done it shorter. I've done it in a month when it's been a relatively small business. Yeah. But that's normally about testing something out and feeling you're in a zone of I can make a decision around this stuff and feeling much more comfortable. So typically, the bigger the stakes, the longer it takes. That's what I would say. Yeah, that makes sense. Then you get to the validation and the prototyping. If I'm guessing, because I haven't worked with a tech business, but if you're in a tech business, it's, how quickly can we code something up? That's probably quite fast, right? If you put a team on
quicker than putting a factory in place.
Yeah, exactly. Product, isn't it? Exactly, yeah. And a service is the same thing. I've worked with creative agencies and market research agencies where we've been able to make a new service or pitch it in a different way. Yeah. 2 weeks sometimes. We're going to try and pitch this thing in a different way to a client than we've done in the past. Yeah. You can do that the next time a pitch comes up. So those kinds of things can work quite quickly. Yeah. And then the final part, the real transformation, is what takes the time, and that's the bit that I was going to come to and say to you. That's about sustaining the effort. Okay. And making sure, because there's going to be wobbles, right? You're going to have the day where the phone doesn't ring and no customer calls you. You're going to have the day where a prime minister trashes the pound exchange rate or something. Yeah. Those things are going to happen, but it's about holding to that and helping the organisation through.
How do you do that when that's that wobble where the sales director goes, but Simon, like, sales are going down, not going up. Yeah. We've made a mistake.
Yeah. That's hard, but I would have said don't turn off your existing thing. To make, I don't think it's ever about turning off what you've got, right? Because you've been successful. Remember that efficient, you're building on top of what you got. This is very much an organic process. Okay. So it is about, a slow transformation into the new. Yeah. And are you getting to the point where you can flip over into, we're not going to define ourselves as manufacturers of razors anymore. We're going to be a male grooming service company. Yeah. Right. That's 10 years down the line. But what are the roads that get us to that point in 10 years where we can say that's what we are? Okay. That's what I look at, and that's what I help the customer do. Right. And it comes back down to the data that they're looking at. Okay. Because you might not get the sale, but if you can see all the other indicators are coming through, that you're getting the web hits, you're getting the thing,
the interest, people signing up for that new newsletter which talks more about grooming than razors, the fact that they're in nurture flows, they might not be dropping over and converting right yet.
Exactly.
That's interesting that you talk about that, because we talk about a chain of metrics. So when we're looking at clients and we're looking at developing, helping them, because we're often doing transformation of how they're doing their digital. So, people don't typically come to a new digital agency when everything's hunky-dory and going great. So, so they're coming because they need change. But we talk about this chain of metrics. So at one end, you've got increased profit. Yeah. And then at the other end, there is something going on. So it could be something like the organic visibility of certain target keywords now.
Yeah.
Well, is that increasing? Yes, it is. Well, we know that that's in the chain. And then you've got, are we then driving the traffic? So are things like the SERPs results, the information on there driving people actually to the site? And once they're on the site, then what's the, you've got metrics, things like time on site, pages viewed.
Yeah.
And all of these things are links in the chain, which eventually end up with, and then they bought this and it was profitable, and then we've got a nurture flow and they've got a great lifetime customer profit.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that, because it can be a number of months where you've only impacted that front end of metrics.
Yeah.
And it's not washed out into the results yet, just because the timeline is a long one.
And sometimes it's fair to say you can't forecast what that timeline is, because you don't control the customer's willingness to part with their cash. Right, they control that. So there are different factors, and those might be operating around outside anything that you can influence. So it's a question of patience and being confident that you are hitting the right data points up to that point.
I mean, we've got a lot of B2B clients working in the enterprise space,
right?
And decision making timelines on that can be measured in years. It's so what you do today isn't going to hit the bottom line next week. It's easier the closer to I would say lower value consumer items, because whether we buy a cup of coffee or something like that, it doesn't matter so much. It's not a prolonged decision, is it?
No, I mean, I worked in furniture industry for the last 10 years of my career, and it's exactly that the thing that I looked at was a customer's propensity to buy, but it was on a 10-year rotation. Right. So part of yes, I want to see the sales for that year, but those are only amongst the people who are live in the market. I'm also looking at all the indicators of, are these people who are not in the market at this moment in time, but who might be in 10 years' time. Also showing the right kind of indicating behaviors that they'll come to us, or at least consider us when that decision point comes. So I'm with you completely on these long scale timelines.
So I mean, you've obviously had some success doing this in your career and with clients. Can you throw out some metrics? I know with confidentiality you can't necessarily mention names, but can you give us some sense of the impact of doing this kind of work with you?
Yeah, I've got some clients where let's say they're service based, right? And their challenges have been more around people and relationships with customers than anything else, and how they presented their services to their target markets. But they didn't know that when they were going in. They were just seeing, let's call it a data point. We're not winning as many pitches as we thought we should do, or we got flat and we didn't win as many as we used to, or the rates weren't working. And they had some thoughts about why that might be. But they didn't really understand what was causing it, right? Despite doing everything right, picking up the phone and saying, so why didn't we win the pitch? They'd always get, you just got pipped by someone who was better. That was kind of the feedback they were getting. And they went back and said, is our service fundamentally right? Are we doing the right things? What do we want to do? How much faster do we want to grow? Because this is becoming like a psychological block for them. So we went right back to the Catalyst program and the beginning stage, looked at everything that they were doing, and realized that actually it was all about that pitch process. But it was what they were saying. It was how they were pitching and how they were dressing up the pitch, rather than the fundamental service offer itself. They thought they were going to have to drop price. They thought they were going to have to commoditize, because that's what they were always losing out to people who were cheaper and this kind of thing. What it came down to, actually, in the end, was we went backwards. We went to their original model and all of the documentation that they'd originally generated in relation to their thinking about what they were trying to do. And unpicked that and said, this is a value add model. This is all about, funnily enough, understanding data better, because it was all about consumer tracking and benchmarking. And really understanding that the value that they add was the insights that they generate from that. They could look at data masses of it, and then come back with the next month you need to do these 3 things because this is what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
But they were never presenting that to their business. But it was through that process of saying, what is it we're trying to do? How are we doing?
Yeah.
So we were able to redefine the service offer, right?
Yeah.
And translate that, and they saw their rate of winning pitches double overnight. So their problem was kind of solved, right?
Brilliant. Okay.
So that's one simple thing.
That's pretty impressive. Those people listening are probably thinking, I'd be happy doubling my conversion rate. That's a worthy exercise, isn't it?
And sometimes, and this is why I say I'm solution neutral, actually, because I could have gone and said, you're going to need you're going to need a low cost, easy, let's work on that.
Yeah.
But there were solutions that suited them better.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what came out of this organic process for them.
Okay.
That's one. Another one, I suppose, more on the product side, is a company that I work with that literally said, right, we can sell more of these products over time. We know we can.
Yeah.
But how are we going to shift into a service-based model?
Okay.
And so I can't talk too much about that because it's covered by various NDA, but it was about looking at fundamentally, how do we redefine our customer?
Right.
So a bit like you described earlier on, we're going to stop doing razors and we're going to go into male grooming.
Yeah.
And what services could we add around male grooming?
That. Yeah.
Same kind of parallels. So that is long-term business transformation at the other end. So I've got this. I've chosen 2 examples. I hope that give you an extreme of, blimey, if we just did this, we'll get an instant result. It was and that was magic actually, because we didn't know that was the answer, but we said, well, why not try it? If we did do this, what would happen? We tried it. Boom, they're off again. And then the other one is a more serious or long-term, I shouldn't say more serious, but a serious transformation. That's what I was trying to say.
A more underlying root and nut and bolt kind of transmission.
Completely different business.
You're going to need different people to deliver it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Different
rather
skill
than
set.
just better. Okay. Well, I mean, it shows the power of going through the catalyst process with you and actually what can be achieved. When you look out into the wider business world, are there inspirational businesses that you think do idea generation and idea validation really well?
Yeah.
Is there
my first reaction when you asked me this, I think in a previous conversation, is, God, I don't know any who do it really well. Like, consistently was the word that you threw at me. Yeah. No, not consistently. Begrudgingly, I'd have to say I take my hat off to Amazon. In my head, right, as a clunky old bloke, I still think of them as, where do you go to buy a book online, right? And I can't really quite get my head around that they do everything else. Yeah. I think, having had some experience of working with them when I was a marketing guy and trying to work out, do we position our products with them and all the rest of it, the way they work is incredible. They have small focus teams who run their businesses more or less autonomously, and they just get on with it. And they prove, their philosophy seems to be, prove out that it works. Right. Yeah. And if it does, we'll back it. And there's obviously some kind of system.
They are doing constant testing. I mean, we know as the as an advertiser work with them.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot.
You probably know more about them than I do.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I say it's like a weed. Everywhere you go, Amazon's springing up like some invasive plant that you can't get rid of. Like when they're in television, they're in this, they're in food retail, on the street now. I mean,
they've got product ranges. Yeah.
Yeah.
This might surprise you. I think Amazon Basics batteries now outsell Duracell.
Good grief. That's incredible. I mean, I came to the point in my last job where we relied a lot on Google. I mean, simple thing. Google search, people saying, I want to buy a bed. Right, okay, well, let's be first in SEO for bed. Yeah. It was a horrible day when we went and sat with the media agency, and they showed us that 60% of UK customers, it was just not only the UK, but this is a global phenomenon, were now searching, their first search for that product category was in Amazon. Yeah. It's like, are you telling me Amazon is a search engine in that sense? Yeah. And this goes back to your point about behavior, right? Yeah. You could see data, but it's of course it is, because that's the way people think, and they get a picture of the product and they get everything. They don't just get choosing the results. So.
Yeah, we talk a lot internally and with our clients about evolution of search.
Yeah.
Because actually, it's not just Amazon that people go to do a search now rather than Google. It's YouTube because they want to look at it on a video, or they're going to Instagram, or they're going to TikTok, or they're going to Facebook. In different ways, people are searching for the answer to their question. So whether that question is a bad night's sleep, or whether it's just know that they need a new bed.
Yeah.
But I think, it's people, in marketing need to understand that search is just as pre any digital. Search might be the yellow pages, but it might be walking down the high street, or it might be speaking to your friend, or it might be, when you're down the pub and there's a group of people saying, "Oh, where do you get this from?"
Yeah.
Human behavior again, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The evolution of human behavior. Yeah. But we are not singular creatures which always do the same thing time after time. Yeah. Different people do different things and have different approaches, and you need to cover those bases.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely.
We need good ideas to tackle that.
And good data.
Yeah,
so that,
good data.
Because I could have a good idea that we just go off and do Google, but if I don't know what you've just described, then I don't know that there's more out there.
Okay. In terms of wrapping it up, can you kind of give the audience a sense of what, if they're feeling like they're running into the buffers on growth, and they think that ideas might be, the answer to that. Yeah. What would you say is they need to do to get off the ground with this?
I think that's a good recognition. That's a good point to get to. I think it's harder if you're further advanced in that, in the sense that you're just sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I can't think of anything, or I'm stuck, or the results aren't coming. That's a rotten place to be. I think if you're feeling rotten about what you're getting, then just say, maybe I need to take a step back, find some time to do that first bit. And I would say, go out and try that ideation process. Yeah. Go out and give it a go, because you've got nothing to lose, frankly. Yeah. You won't need to invest a huge amount of time, I don't think. Yeah. It may take a month to get things, from A to B. Yeah. But it will only take you 3 or 4 days, I believe, because I think it's got to be sparky and spontaneous, and you've actually, part of that process is about stepping away from it and letting it just sort of mull over in the back of your mind, so that something pops up in the shower, so that your subconscious is working on this as well. Yeah. So I think that commit to it, go out and do it. It's really not a big investment either in time or money to do that process, and see what you get out of it. Because then if you keep an open mind and you think about, okay, well, this is what's going to come out of it, you can then make your decisions from there on. And that's why, honestly, I staged the process like this, because I think it's really hard to say, we're going to transform the business, right? And as a team, it's really hard to do that. Yeah. If you're the sole owner and you've decided and it's you and you're just going to push through with it because that's what you want to do, that's a bit easier. But when you're in a more team-based environment, or a corporate, or whatever it might be, you need to carry a lot of people with you. Yeah. So this phased approach gives you time,
but start with that diverse group of people, that good cross-section up and down and across your organisation.
Yeah. Get your salespeople
bring them in. Get the ideas, and then you're saying some of the best golden nuggets are actually in those ones that they're pretty big, but they're making you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, go for the ones that are big and make you feel uncomfortable.
Okay, and then probably at that point they need to start. Well, if not before, be bringing in expertise, because
I think
sounds scary, doesn't it, by that point? But that's business is risk and reward, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's about, as you say, minimizing the risk, which is where a staged approach, I think, helps, because it allows you to sort of tick off each stage with due diligence and say, we feel comfortable about that bit. Yeah. And then not betting the whole place on, the one idea that you say is going to transform everything. Do it in a very measured way, so that you get to a point where you go, this is the thing to do.
Yeah. Simon, it's been fascinating talking
Tim.
to you. If people want to get hold of you,
Yep.
how should they do that?
They can email me. So
Yeah.
it's simon@iclab, iclab.co.uk. That's the easiest way.
Yeah, okay. And no doubt you're on LinkedIn and things like that.
Yes, I am. I can't remember what my profile
That's
thing
okay,
is,
no,
but
but that's okay. They can search for the. But yeah, email you simon@iclab.co.uk. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching another one of our Digital Marketing Answered videos. So I hope you've liked it. If you do, please click like. Also, sign up to get notifications and subscribe to the channel so you'll get those messages when the latest videos are coming out. And thank you again, Simon.
Thank
It's
you.
been a
Thanks for
real
having me.
pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed that, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.